This is Scorched Vine, a Vin Noir's production of Hope's Nocturne, written by OPL Noir and performed by Carrie Storm. Chapter 2. New friends. Fuming as the sun roasted her for something as dumb as a guy and a float, Amanda trudged along. In truth, except for a set of ample bosoms, the women were dressed demurely in black linen, except for her, unfortunately. The adults thought, at 12, she was too young to wear black. Amelia wore her good perfume for the occasion, not her usual cheap stuff. All in all, it was appropriate attire under the circumstances, even if her mother's neckline did plunge a little too far and the diamond didn't cover enough. Amanda found the entire display embarrassing, not worth missing her favorite TV show and being roasted in the sun for. She began to wonder if her father had overreacted. All this stress over money, diamonds, wine, Macon, and his dead wife. Ugh! Amanda could feel the burn on her shoulders setting in. However, there is something about this woman I'm beginning to like. She was poor, possibly defiant, but now dead. Question: how does being poor and defiant kill? She had had enough. She fell back in step with the girls, who now trudged along on either side of her. She would have to put up with their continuous chatter for the rest of the walk. Their observations over swatches, color combinations, makeup, and boys changed like the weather. I guess nothing much changes with age, Amanda concluded, considering the adults' conversation. Money, networking, and the idiot. She sincerely hoped he would be there. If nothing else, she needed to see who all the fuss was about. This, my dear old dad, is a bit of torture I will be extracting a hefty fee for, Amanda thought. She smiled, remembering again how he'd volunteered her for this little promenade. His mercenary errand. She decided to rename her mission. A chemistry or maybe a new spy kit should cover the cost of the burn. Stay back here with us, Anna whispered at her. Nodding, Lily added, keep out of sight. Stay quiet and stay out of trouble. Amanda sighed. I may as well stay back here. I've gotten as much as I'm going to get with this anyway. Looking like a sore green thumb doesn't exactly scream incognito. She imagined it was how she looked, with burned shoulders and lime green bell bottoms. After removing the hand she'd been using to extricate a particularly recalcitrant wedgie, she quickly glanced around. Satisfied that she hadn't been noticed, she hung her head, cast her eyes down, and tried to look small. She had persuaded her mother to pin her curls up this time. After all, it looked undignified for an investigator of her caliber to be seen with two afro puffs, full of orange curls. The effect, however, rendered it difficult to fit under a hat or be stealthy. At what age are curls inappropriate? Amanda scowled. How did I get this wild curly mop when everyone in my family has straight, dark red hair? Everyone but me. She did her best to balance the hot, heavy dish in her hands, which were still too small. Being the shortest in her family and having stout hips and thighs earned her the nickname Dumpling, used by her father as a term of endearment. Her mop of Titian curls, however, garnered her the nickname Milk, primarily used by the neighbors and everyone else for entirely malicious reasons. Amanda cringed at their neighbors' clicking jalousies. They could be heard over rustling leaves, singing birds, and the two gossiping girls. They were no doubt being cackled about. Those who weren't hiding behind jalousies were openly chortling on their verandas. Nothing could be done about the scrutiny. Their nosy neighbors all lived close enough to spit in one another's pot. Moving this little procession any slower would be impossible, she sighed. Amanda looked forward to the relief of Miss Sabine's little cottage, even with the prospect of her cheeks, hair, and dignity being mangled. She could almost see it, just a block ahead. Until then, there would be intermittent shade granted in the form of ancient cherry trees. She licked her dry lips in anticipation of the food she could almost savor. Abundant trees bracketed both sides of the narrow lane. Pink canopies, lush with flowers, which would soon become fruits, would provide much needed respite from the blazing sun as a light light breeze perfumed by the ocean's brine cooled her overheated skin. She longed to be anywhere else. An image of the five of them dressed in loose-fitting black linen on the streets of New Orleans, like a father had often described, sashaying in time to a dirge, popped into her head. Amanda almost giggled. She thought, "Help! I'm becoming delirious. At least my attire was more appropriate." She sighed, then cringed as her mother glanced back. "Right, be quiet," she said, hanging her head. "She's got the new Jordache jeans," Lily exclaimed, just as Amanda tuned into their conversation. Anna scoffed. "I'll believe that when I can see it. They don't make them in her size." "How do you know her size?" Lily asked, gesturing towards Anna with the covered dish in her hand. "I don't," Anna shrugged. Then Anna made a sound somewhere between disgust and all-out outrage. "They don't have my size. And if they don't have my size, then they definitely don't have hers." Lily paused, pursing her lips, and turned again to Anna. "Why would she lie? And what must it be like to be limited in your style choices?" "I don't want to know," Anna answered, shivering, a gesture that reminded Amanda of their mother. "Anyway, did you see Dallas last night? Did you see Donna Krebs? Oh, how I want to know what it's like to be her, a titan, a mover and a shaker. Somebody kill me, please," Amanda whispered, scowling at each of them. "And before I pull my curls out." "No, I missed it," Lily said, ignoring Amanda's outburst. "Anyway, I heard the eldest son will be there, and he's worth a second look." She perked up. "That's not what I heard. From the bits I've uncovered, he has no inheritance coming and limited prospects for the future." Anna sighed. "I'll pass." "Why do we have to give them all our food?" Amanda interjected. She'd heard as much as she could take on the subject of boys, clothing, and prospects. Not to mention the dish in question had been one of her favorites, with sausage and leftover peodos. It was a valid question. She glared when Anna looked down her nose at her, as if you weren't thinking that. Added to her list of woes were a burgeoning rash, blisters on her feet from Anna's two big shoes, and the fact that sweat and polyester never made for a great mix. "Stop your fussing," Amelia said, fixing her with a stare that would freeze a corpse. "They might hear you." The woman actually hissed. Her mother huffed out a breath and replaced the glacial glare with a million-watt smile as she turned towards Miss Sabine's home. Amanda froze. She'd seen the transformation before, but it still made her shiver. "Now," Amelia continued, the wattage on her toothy grin increasing, "they are the unfortunate of our society. They haven't had your advantages, being saddled with the kind of mother they had. However," she sighed, waving her hand as if clearing away some foul bit of air, "now that they're living with their grandmother, and make no mistake, she is poor, the unfortunate dear, we have an opportunity to do some good here. So let's be good neighbors and do what we can." Thoroughly embarrassed, Amanda felt about as large as a flea. Renewing her resolve to keep her opinions to herself, she walked on with her sister, eyes cast down. "She's on one of her soapboxes." Anna, who had been silently watching the exchange, now decided to whisper in her ear. "All that's left for us to do is to complete the mission. No questions asked." "Nice job rubbing it in. I can't see my show this evening," Amanda fumed. She stopped and looked up in time to see the girls bounding up Miss Sabine's bright red staircase as a bunch of well-wishers sauntered down. A cloud of white cotton pants and bright blue strings flowing from their halter tops billowed in the wind. Amanda sulked, wishing she could have been dressed as comfortably. "How long will I have to wear Anna's hand-me-downs?" she whispered, glancing down at the hideous lime green bell-bottoms. "I'm almost 13. You'd think I'd be allowed to choose my own clothes. I really hate green," she grumbled, as she scanned the porches of neighbors' houses. The theme song of her favorite show played in her head head. Amanda smiled, readjusting the uncomfortable straps on her hand-me-down mint green shirt before climbing the stairs. "Hello!" Amelia called from the doorway. "Miss Sabine, it's Amelia and Leah, and we came bearing food." How embarrassing. Amanda barged through the crowd of well-wishers. The press of suit-clad bodies gave her the perfect cover to cut a straight path through the living room and dining room, not stopping until she found the ideal vantage point in the kitchen. She moved like she owned the place, barely sparing Miss Sabine and the young girl seated next to her on a one-person chair, and a few more well-wishers a brief cursory glance. She executed an obligatory nod, using the heavy casserole dish as an excuse. She hoped it covered any perceived rudeness on her part. "Good!" Amanda breathed a sigh of relief. "I should be able to scan the crowd from here." Once safe behind the kitchen's beaded curtain, she placed her dish along with the smorgasbord of food-laden dishes already overflowing the table, wondering whether she shouldn't place the food in the refrigerator for Miss Sabine. She began rearranging the dishes on the table. "I guess everyone had the same idea. Bring food," Amanda observed, mumbling to herself. "At least they won't grow hungry anytime soon." She'd always considered Miss Sabine a sweet old lady, minus the excessive wrinkles and overpowering lineament. She had the awful habit of squeezing Amanda with her bone-crushing hugs. "To within an inch of my life," she thought, rubbing her sides. Once the crushing was over, she then proceeded to pinch her cheeks until they were red with humiliation. Then the twirling of her curls, as if they weren't tight enough, would commence. With any luck, Amanda hoped she would be able to hide in the kitchen until it was time to go home. "With no prior description of the suspect, what am I supposed to be looking for?" Amanda frowned, scanning the faces in the crowd from a safe distance. "Mom did say he was French, with access to a lot of women," she sighed, remembering the earlier conversation. Every window in the place had been flung as high as it could go. "Without air conditioning," Amanda reasoned, "with so many suits per square foot, the room has to feel like a beehive in summer." With a cacophony of tinkling glasses, cigarette smoke, and laughter belaying the occasion, safety was a real concern. She closed her eyes, smiling as a cool breeze blew in through the kitchen's back door. "I'll just camp out here," she thought, leaning against the door jamb. Amelia looked safely occupied in the center of the dining room with a gray-haired pinstripe suit in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. Every so often, when the throng thinned, she spotted Leah and the girls. They were huddled around Miss Sabine and the girl in the far corner of the living room. The girl, who seemed to be older than Amelia's almost 13 years, sported lovely dark curls and seemed welded to the elder woman's side. "Grief. I heard it's hard. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose my dad." She frowned. "Wait, she lost her mom, right?" Amanda shrugged. "That smells really good," a husky voice said from somewhere behind her. Amanda jumped, slapping her hand over her mouth before she screamed and blew her cover. She turned, then froze to the spot. A tall, lanky boy stared at her as if she had an extra head. Being frozen seemed an odd reaction for her, considering she never had a single good use for males. "Well, other than that," she frowned and shrugged, but continued staring.